Today we're going to work on making a sled. I made this one. This is a prototype. Tried to use tin foil from a pan, just too flimsy. So we're going to do a new one, and we're going to show you how to make it where it's not flimsy. So what you're going to need today is some craft sticks, regular size, and some coffee stirrers. Now I am going to need some other pieces. I have a bunch of scraps, so I will use some of my scrap wood. And then for the runners, we're just going to use a box. And this is super easy. You can cut, you can do whatever you want, but we're just going to go ahead and cut this apart. So we're just going to take the box and we're going to take what we cut, and I want to make it stronger. So I'm going to fold it over strong here and use my ruler to make it nice and strong. And we're just going to glue that together so that it is one stronger piece. I'm going to need more glue in my glue cup. I've already been working today and I've already used my glue. I use these for everything. I think they're fantastic. Red Solo cup. And then we're just going to glue that together. And let that dry. While we're letting that dry, let's make the bottom of our sled. I'm going to make two at the same time, two different sizes. The big one, we're going to start with 3 craft sticks, and we're going to take them and I'm going to lay them out like that. And then I'm going to take 2 coffee stirrers, and I'm going to actually make them a little bit more. And you can see that the basis of my sled is starting to come out. So that is the base of my sled. But I don't want my sled to be that long, so we're going to take a pencil and we're going to kind of eyeball it. From the front to the back, it's going to be about 4 inches. Doesn't have to be exact, but it's going to be right about 4 inches. You're going to find with me, I'm not an exact person a lot of times. I just kind of eyeball it and where it looks good. I did actually measure out and get a really good idea of how big a sled is. And this size sled is actually the one that if you want to buy a runner sled, this is the size it's going to be. I'm going to take my miter shears. I have a link in the description below for these. These are fantastic. I would highly recommend them. And I'm just going to trim off the ends. Right where I cut my line, right at that 4-inch mark. My floor is always littered with these end pieces around me. We'll clean that up later. Okay, so I got some scraps there. Let's put the scraps up there with the others. And then at this point, you can see that I have a nice basis for a sled. You can just use a straight edge to make it lay flat. My small sled, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm only going to put the 3 craft sticks right together. And on this one, I just bought these, I have these little teeny tiny craft sticks. They're actually called Woodies. They're 2.5 by 3/8. And we're just going to go ahead and put those, and that's going to be my little baby sled. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to need now is I know I need to make the cross pieces to hold them together. So for this one, we're going to go, and the width of this is going to be 1.5. I want to make 2 1.5 cross pieces. So I'm going to measure 1.5 on some of my scrap pieces that I have, but you could just use a straight piece of, you could use any of these, just cut it with a new one. In fact, On my one that I'm actually replacing, you can see I just did a regular size craft stick. So 1.5. And let's do another 1.5. Oh, wow, look, that one is a 1.5. Nope, it's not. I have to trim a little bit off. Okay, so 1.5 and 1.5, right around there. And so that is going to be my cross pieces. On this one, I need 1 1/8. So let's see if I can get 1 1/8 out of this piece. I can. So 1 1/8 right there. And this is not an exact science. And, you know, I think I am still going to do 2 pieces because it just makes sense to me. So even though I could probably get away with just 1 on this, I am going to do 2. Okay, all we're going to do now is we are going to glue these cross pieces on. Glue these together. I'm just going to put a little dab of glue straight across. And there is no science, there's no magic. It is just where you think it needs to be. If there's a little bit of space between them, that's fine because that's what happens in real runner sleds. And then glue this next piece on. Perfecto. And then we're going to do the same thing with my baby sled. And glue this on too. Okay, the only other thing we're going to do on the bottom, make sure they're done, is we're going to glue some little legs on there. I want to make sure that we have a couple little bit of legs. I'm going to grab a piece of sandpaper. I usually have that out on my desk. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to make some legs. I want those legs to be right at about 1/2 inch. So let me go ahead and mark. I'm going to have 2 legs on each one. So let's go ahead and mark out 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. I'm going to need 4 for each one, 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. Okay, and then let's go ahead and cut. And these are going to fly everywhere, so. I'm going to take them and make them just a little bit smooth on the edge. So we're just going to give them a quick rub on the sandpaper. Nothing too intense, just enough to take off any loose ends. And then we're just going to take a little bit of this, put it in, dab it on in 2 spots, and then pop one of these on each one. A little bit of glue, and let this glue sit right there. These are what's going to hold the runners on. And repeat for all 4 legs. And now we are done with that step. Looks kind of crazy, but it is time to set these aside. And we are going to take our cardboard. And I'm going to take it and we are going to make 2 long strips. Best way and easiest way is just to take your knife, and each strip is going to be right at about 1/4 inch. And then I'm just going to cut down the knife. Might take 1 or 2 passes because it is a couple thicknesses thick. And then let's take another pass because we've got a couple runners, so let's do another pass. You can see I eyeball most of my stuff. which is fine. If you don't have a knife and you don't want to do it, you can always trim it with a pair of scissors. Scissors work just fine also. So we now have our runners fixed, our cardboard, and it is time to make the yoke for your sled. That is the part that's going to go like right here. And what we do is I want to cut another piece that's roughly a little bit wider than it. So if you remember, we cut that at 1.5. We're going to cut this at like 1 3/4. We're going to take our cardboard and we're going to wrap it around a little bit like this, and then just going to trim that off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take glue and I'm going to glue this into place. I don't need to make sure that my rudder actually works. So we're just going to glue that puppy right into place. And then hold it down for just a hot second until it holds. You can leave that loose in there. Just know that it very well may slide off. And then let's do the same thing for my little sled. Now this is a littler one, so I'm going to use a smaller piece here. We're going to use it out of this. Just measuring a little bit with my eyeball. I'm cutting that off. And then we cut that off. And we're going to do the exact same thing for this piece. We're just going to take a piece of our paper, wrap it around till you get a good width for it. And then you're just going to trim that off. And pop a little glue. Pop a little. It got a little messy on that glue. Oops, oh well. Put it in about center and let it dry. Looking at this, I'm going to tell you, I don't like the square end. I want it rounded. Easiest way to do that is we're just going to go ahead without any extra tools. I'm just going to go ahead and carve it off a little bit. Now, if you have your sander here, or if you have your Dremel, you can always go ahead and trim a little bit out that way. But for the purpose of this video, we're just doing basic tools that probably everybody has. Once you have that, you can just kind of give it a little bit of a whirl just to make it a little bit more rounded. And that looks so much better. Let's do that with this one also. Okay, so it might be a little bit more octagonal, maybe. And that's okay too. I just want it to be a little bit more rounded off. And then we're going to do the same thing with this one. Now we have these pieces and it is time to put them together. You never see it attached to the top. We're going to attach it to the bottom. So now we have our pieces put together for this. And let's go ahead and attach our yoke to the sled. We're just going to dab a little bit of glue right here on that front piece. And then literally hold it in place until it dries. And the same thing for the other sled. Okay, it's looking like sleds, aren't they? So the next thing up is the runners. We'll start by taking the end of one of our strips and we're going to attach it. We're going to glue it back down to the wood over here. We're going to let that hold that down for a second till that dries. And then we're going to wrap that up around that yolk. And just bend the cardboard. And then I'm going to dab a little bit of glue on either side of that yolk to hold that in place. And then slowly we're just going to work our way back. We're going to attach it to the first runner, the second runner, and then I am going to curl it back under so that it hooks back up with the sled. So let's go ahead and dab a little bit of glue. Dab, 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 dab. Little bit of glue, little bit of glue. Somehow. And then we're going to just simply glue this last section here and curl this back around. And voila, we have a sled. And we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Just like that, we have two sleds. What's up next is a little bit of painting. Let's get ready for some painting. I like to paint on wax paper. It keeps my desktop from getting, well, maybe not look pretty because look at my desktop. But I do like to paint with that. So we're going to get this. And like I said, I'm going to paint this red. And I happen to have red apple. So it really is just a thing of, let's just go ahead and paint away. Easy peasy. Let's do the other one. Oops. Now I do want to do my crossbars. I want my post to also look painted. So I'm just going to paint those posts real quick. Like that, we're ready for the snow. Let's go sledding.